Rain fell on my father's casket as Michael delivered his eulogy. My older brother, the golden child, the tech prodigy, stood there in his tailored suit, talking about Dad's entrepreneurial spirit and how he'd carry on the family legacy. I stood silently, clutching my worn laptop bag. Inside was the prototype that had consumed the last 3 years of my life. A revolutionary chip design that could transform artificial intelligence processing. Dad had been the only one who believed in it. Your sister Olivia, Michael's voice pulled me back to the present, will always have a place in our family's company, just as Dad wanted. The implied charity in his tone made my jaw clench. Classic Michael, using even our father's funeral to reinforce his position as the family's successful son. The rain intensified, but I barely noticed. After the service, Michael found me in Dad's study. I was looking at the wall of family photos, mostly Michael's achievements. His college graduation, the launch of his first startup, the day he took over as CEO of Wilson Dynamics. "We need to discuss the company," he said, closing the door. I knew what was coming. Dad had left his 30% stake in Wilson Dynamics to be split between us. Michael already owned 45%, and now he wanted total control. "I'll buy your shares," he stated, pulling out a checkbook. "Market value plus 10%. Generous, considering you've never contributed to the company's success." I thought about my prototype, about the countless nights I'd spent in my small lab while Michael built his empire using Dad's connections. I'd rather keep my shares. He laughed, that condescending sound I'd heard my entire life. "And do what with them? Vote on company decisions? You barely understand what we do." "I understand more than you think." "Really?" He perched on Dad's desk, radiating smug superiority. "Tell me, what exactly do you understand about running a tech company from your little garage lab? About managing hundreds of employees? About competing in the AI market?" The AI market. If he only knew. "I understand enough to keep my shares." His amusement turned to irritation. "Listen, Liv. You're my sister, and I'll always take care of you. But let's be realistic. You'll never make it in tech without me. Stay in your little lab. Work on your hobby projects. Leave the real business to people who know what they're doing." Something in me snapped. 10 years of condescension, of being the quirky younger sister who played with electronics while Michael became the tech industry star. Is that what you really think? It's what I know. He stood, straightening his suit. "You're not built for this world, Liv. Dad knew it too. Why do you think he left you the smaller share?" I grabbed my laptop bag. Maybe because he knew I didn't need it. Michael blocked my path. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I don't need your help, your money, or your approval." I met his eyes. "And someday, you'll understand exactly how wrong you've been. Is this about your little pet project?" He gestured to my bag. "That chip design you kept bothering Dad about? Wake up, Liv. If it was worth anything, don't you think someone would have noticed by now?" I smiled, remembering Dad's last words to me. "Patience, sweetheart. Let them underestimate you. It's your greatest advantage." "Someone to notice," I said quietly. Dad noticed. He helped me file the patent 6 months ago. Michael's expression flickered. "Patents? International coverage. Core technology for AI processing architecture." I stepped around him. "But don't worry about it. It's just a hobby project, right?" "Wait." His voice had lost its condescension. "What exactly did you patent?" "Stay in your little lab," I quoted back to him. "Leave the real business to people who know what they're doing." I left him standing in Dad's study, surrounded by his own achievements, finally showing the first hint of uncertainty I'd ever seen in his expression. That night, in my little lab, actually a sophisticated workspace I'd built in a converted warehouse, I reviewed the final prototype tests. The neural processing architecture I'd developed wasn't just an improvement on existing technology. It was a fundamental reimagining of how AI systems could function. Dad had understood immediately. While Michael focused on marketing existing tech, I'd been quietly revolutionizing the foundation of AI processing itself. The patents Dad helped me secure weren't just protective. They were potentially industry-changing. My phone buzzed. "Michael, we should discuss your patents. Dinner tomorrow?" I ignored it, focusing instead on an email from Jessica Martinez at the patent office. Final approval confirmed. Documentation complete. Another message from Michael. "Whatever you're planning, remember who has the resources to actually bring products to market." I smiled, thinking about the meetings I had scheduled for next week. Venture capitalists, tech reviewers, potential partners. All arranged quietly over the past 6 months with Dad's guidance. Going to bed, Dr. Wilson? My assistant Sophie called from the lab entrance. She was the only other person who knew the full scope of what we'd developed. "Almost done," I replied, making final adjustments to the presentation I'd be giving next week. "Just refining some details. Your brother's company announced their new AI platform today," Sophie mentioned casually. "They're calling it revolutionary." I nodded, unsurprised. Michael always announced products before they were ready, counting on his marketing team to bridge the gap between promise and reality. "Should we be worried?" Sophie asked. "No." I closed my laptop, thinking about the technical specifications I'd seen in Wilson Dynamics' public filings. They're still using conventional architecture. They have no idea what's coming. That night, I dreamed about Dad. Not the sick man from the hospital, but the father who'd first taught me about electronics, who'd encouraged my curiosity, while everyone else focused on Michael's more visible achievements. "Your brother builds on the surface," he told me once. "You build from the foundation up. Both have value, but foundations last longer." I woke to 30 messages from Michael, each more demanding than the last. He wanted meetings, explanations, cooperation. The confident dismissal from the funeral was gone, replaced by barely concealed anxiety. Opening my work email, I found meeting confirmations from 3 major tech companies. They'd seen the patent filings. They understood the implications. Michael's last message caught my eye. "Don't do anything rash. We're family. We should work together." I thought about all the times he dismissed my work, all the condescending comments about my little lab and hobby projects, about his speech at Dad's funeral, his automatic assumption that I'd sell my shares, his certainty that I'd never succeed without him. "Working late tonight?" Sophie asked when I arrived at the lab. "Very late," I confirmed, setting up for another round of prototype testing. We'd got a lot to prove. And somewhere across town, in his corner office with its wall of awards and magazine covers, my brother was about to learn that sometimes the biggest threats come from the people you least expect, especially the ones you've spent years underestimating. The TechSummit conference room fell silent as I finished my presentation. Hundreds of industry executives, engineers, and investors stared at the performance metrics displayed on the giant screen behind me. These numbers, a senior engineer from Google spoke first. "They're verified? Independently tested at 3 different labs," I confirmed, advancing to the next slide. The neural processing architecture achieves 400% better performance while using 60% less power. The room erupted in murmurs. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another message from Michael. He'd sent 43 in the past 2 days, each more desperate than the last. Dr. Wilson called out Janet Chen, a prominent venture capitalist. "What's your timeline for commercial implementation?" "We have working prototypes now," I replied, nodding to Sophie, who unveiled the sleek black processing unit. Full-scale production could begin within 6 months. More murmurs. Everyone in the room understood what this meant. The AI processor market was worth billions, and I'd just demonstrated technology that made current solutions obsolete, including my brother's entire product line. After the presentation, I was surrounded by executives offering partnerships, investors promising blank checks, and engineers asking technical questions. In the corner, I spotted Wilson Dynamics' Chief Technology Officer frantically typing on his phone. "Dr. Wilson," a quiet voice cut through the crowd. Marcus Zhang, CEO of Silicon Dynamics, extended his hand. "We should talk privately." 20 minutes later, in a secluded meeting room, Marcus got straight to the point. "Name your price. The technology isn't for sale." He smiled. "Everything's for sale. 10 billion? I thought about Michael's words at Dad's funeral, about staying in my little lab. "This isn't about money, Mr. Zhang. 15 billion. Exclusive rights." He slid a preliminary term sheet across the table. "You could fund 100 research labs with that." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. "Michael, your presentation is trending on tech Twitter. Call me immediately." "Excuse me," I told Marcus, "but I have other meetings scheduled, though I appreciate the offer." His smile faded. "Wilson Dynamics will be calling next. Your brother is probably very busy right now." Indeed, Michael was busy. His company's stock had dropped 18% since my presentation, as analysts digested the implications of my technology. Wilson Dynamics' much-hyped new AI platform, scheduled to launch next quarter, was now effectively obsolete before release. Sophie met me outside the conference center. "Your brother's here." "Here?" "In the lobby, with his entire executive team." I checked my phone. 67 missed calls, 112 messages, emails from Wilson Dynamics board members. "Should we use the back exit?" Sophie asked. "No," I straightened my jacket. "Time to face this head-on." Michael stood as I entered the lobby, his usual corporate polish showing cracks. His CTO hovered nearby, clutching a tablet full of my technical specifications. "We need to talk," Michael said, trying to sound authoritative, but missing by a mile. "I'm quite busy." "Damn it, Liv." His composure cracked. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Our stock is in freefall. Partners are calling about contract revisions. All because you couldn't. All because I couldn't what?" I cut in. "Succeed without you? Stay in my little lab? Leave the real business to people who know what they're doing." His face flushed. The executive team shifted uncomfortably. "The patents," his CTO interjected. "They're fundamental. We can't work around them. Every approach we've tried uses my architecture as a foundation." I finished. "Yes, I know." Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What do you want?" "Want to license the patents, to sell them, to," he swallowed, "partner with Wilson Dynamics." I thought about the wall of his achievements in Dad's study, about a lifetime of condescension and dismissal. "I have a meeting with Intel in 20 minutes. I said, checking my watch. Their CEO flew in personally. Intel? Michael's voice cracked. Liv, we're family. You can't. Family? I laughed. Now we're family. Not when you tried to buy my shares for pennies. Not when you mocked my work. Not when you used Dad's funeral to emphasize my supposed inadequacies. His executive team was openly staring now, seeing their invincible CEO stripped of his arrogance. At least talk to our board, he pleaded. They're meeting emergency session tomorrow. Can't. I'm having lunch with Apple's acquisition team. I started walking toward the elevator. Though I heard Silicon Dynamics made an interesting offer. Michael grabbed my arm. You would sell to our biggest competitor. I haven't decided to sell to anyone. I pulled free. But isn't this what you wanted? For me to learn about real business. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Sophie held the door as I stepped in. Liv, please. Michael's voice had lost all its corporate authority. Everything I've built was built on assumptions. I finished as the doors began to close. About me, about my work, about who gets to decide what success looks like. The last thing I saw was my brother's face, a mix of desperation and dawning comprehension that his dismissive little sister now held the power to reshape the entire industry. The next week was a blur of meetings, demonstrations, and increasingly dramatic offers. Wilson Dynamics stock continued to fall as more technical details emerged. Analysts called my architecture a paradigm shift. Competitors circled my brother's company like sharks scenting blood. Your brother's board called again, Sophie reported one evening as I reviewed licensing proposals. They're discussing removing him as CEO. I nodded, unsurprised. Michael had staked everything on his AI platform launch. Now it was worthless before it even hit the market. There's also this. She handed me a magazine. The cover showed Michael and me at Dad's funeral. Him at the podium, me in the rain. The headline read, Silicon Valley's biggest upset. How Wilson Dynamics missed the future in their own family. They want to know your next move, Sophie added. Everyone's waiting. I looked at the prototype humming quietly on my workbench. Dad had been right. Foundations matter more than surface appearances. Their lawyer called too, Sophie continued. Apparently, their preliminary analysis shows their entire product line might infringe on your patents. Might? Does infringe. Significantly. She paused. What are you going to do? I picked up my phone, looking at the dozens of missed calls from Michael. Each one a reversal of a lifetime of dismissal. Each one a recognition that the sister he'd underestimated now controlled his fate. First, I said, we're going to let them sweat a little longer. Then? I smiled, thinking about all those years in my little lab while Michael built his empire on shifting sand. Then we're going to teach some people a very expensive lesson about underestimating the wrong person. Because sometimes success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about waiting until proving them wrong hurts the most. The Wilson Dynamics boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it from childhood visits with Dad, all mahogany and leather, designed to intimidate. But today, sitting at the head of the table, while the board members waited nervously for me to speak, the room felt different. Maybe because my brother's usual seat was empty. The patent infringement is comprehensive. Wilson Dynamics chief counsel explained, sliding a thick document across the table. Our entire AI processing architecture relies on technology Dr. Wilson patented. Dr. Wilson, not Michael's sister or Ms. Wilson anymore. Amazing what a few $1 billion in market capitalization could do for one's professional courtesy. To be clear, another board member spoke up. Without a licensing agreement, we can't ship any products. We'd lose every contract. The company would collapse. I finished. Yes, I know. The room fell silent. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Michael pacing in his office across the courtyard. He hadn't been invited to this meeting, a fact that must have been killing him. We're prepared to offer significant compensation, the board chairman began. Full market value plus. I've already received better offers, I interrupted. Silicon Dynamics offered $15 billion for exclusive rights. Intel topped that yesterday. Apple called this morning. More silence. The chairman's face had gone pale. But you haven't accepted any offers, the CFO observed carefully. No. Because? I stood, walking to the windows. Michael had stopped pacing, staring directly at the boardroom. Even from this distance, I could feel the weight of his gaze. Do you know what my brother said to me at our father's funeral? I turned back to the board. He said I'd never make it in tech without him, that I should stay in my little lab and leave the real business to people who know what they're doing. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all been there that day, watching Michael dismiss me in front of everyone. Here's my offer, I continued. Wilson Dynamics gets a non-exclusive license to my patent portfolio. You pay market rate royalties, just like everyone else will. No special treatment, no family discounts. But I'm not finished. I held up my hand. The license is contingent on some management changes. Michael steps down as CEO. Immediately, the chairman leaned forward. You want to take over? No, I smiled. I want him to learn the same lesson Dad taught me. Success isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about understanding what you actually contribute and who would run the company. Sophie Martinez will be here in 10 minutes. She's managed my research team for 5 years. She understands both the technology and its business implications. I paused. She also lacks any illusions about her own importance. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Sophie, ready when you are. One more thing, I added. The company establishes a new R&D division. Real research, not just product development. And it operates independently, without interference from marketing or sales. You want to run it? The chairman asked. No, I want to choose who runs it, and I want it named after Dad. I met each board member's eyes. He always believed in building foundations, not just selling promises. The chairman glanced at the stock ticker displayed on the wall. Wilson Dynamics down 40% since my patent announcement. How long do we have to decide? Intel's offer expires at midnight. I gathered my papers. I suggest you choose quickly. Walking out, I stopped at Michael's office. He sat behind his desk, all his usual confident energy replaced by defeated stillness. The board's voting now, I said from the doorway, to accept your terms. His voice was hollow. To replace me. To save the company you nearly destroyed with your arrogance. He looked up sharply. I built this company. No, I cut in. Dad built this company. You inherited it and coasted on his reputation while ignoring actual innovation. How long since your R&D team developed anything genuinely new? His silence was answer enough. You know what your problem is, Michael? You've spent so long being the star that you forgot how to recognize real talent, even when it was right in front of you. In my defense, he managed a weak smile. You hit it pretty well in that little lab of yours. No, You just never bothered to look. I turned to leave, then stopped. By the way, Sophie's taking over as CEO. Try to learn something from her. She understands what you never did. That true leadership is about building things, not just taking credit for them. And what will you do? He asked. Take Silicon Dynamics' offer? I'm launching my own company. The patents will be licensed to anyone who can actually use them to build something worthwhile. I met his eyes. Even Wilson Dynamics, under its new leadership. Liv, he called as I reached the door. I was wrong. About you. About everything. I know. I smiled slightly. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? The next month transformed the tech industry. My architecture became the new standard for AI processing. Wilson Dynamics, under Sophie's leadership, refocused on genuine innovation. Their stock recovered as investors gained confidence in the new direction. Michael, stripped of his titles, but still a major shareholder, did something unexpected. He went back to school, taking engineering courses to understand the technology he'd spent years marketing, but never really comprehended. My new company, housed in the same little lab where I developed the original patents, quickly became a hub for genuine innovation. We focused on foundations, just as Dad had taught me, letting others handle the marketing and sales. 1 year after my TechSummit presentation, I received a package from Michael. Inside was a framed magazine cover, not one of his many glamour shots, but a recent article about Wilson Dynamics' revitalized R&D division. The division I'd insisted they name after Dad. A note was attached. You were right. Success isn't about who gets the credit. It's about who does the work. I hung it in my lab, next to Dad's old workbench that I'd kept all these years. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's success. It's about teaching them what success really means. Last week, Michael stopped by the lab. No fancy suit, no corporate swagger. Just my brother, carrying a prototype he'd been working on in his engineering courses. Would you look at this? He asked, embarrassment and hope mixing in his voice. I could use some advice from someone who knows what they're doing. I smiled, clearing space on the workbench. Pull up a chair. Let's build something real. Because in the end, true victory isn't about proving people wrong. It's about teaching them how to be right.